Ah, betrayal. The harshest of feelings, when those who are closest to us have not only let us down, but actively worked against us in secret. Throughout history, we find insidious betrayal everywhere we look. Consider Glorious Caesar, minding his business, going about emperor over the empire, only for his best friend and tennis doubles partner Brutus to lead a revolution upon the Senate floor, causing him severe emotional wounds. They also stabbed him 23 times with knives, so I guess causing him severe physical wounds as well. Consider the American Continental Army Major General, traitorous Benedict Arnold, who actively worked to surrender his command of West Point to the British before being found out and retreating behind enemy lines. Or the coward Robert Ford, who betrayed his gang leader and founding member of the 60s and 70s rock group The James Gang, Jesse James, with a bullet when he was turned around looking at a photograph. And of course, famed Italian family man Fredo Corleone, who betrayed his entire family to Hyman Roth, all for stealing a loaf of bread. Wait, that may have been Jean Valjean from the novel and subsequent Broadway favorite Les Miserables, but it doesn't matter. We will be discussing betrayal as today's theme for the Betrayal book tag, which starts in 2, 4, 6, 0, 1. Okay, everybody, we are doing the Betrayal book tag today. Now, this is a tag that was created by Johanna from Johanna Reads and Allen from the Library of Alexandria with, I believe, some extra help from Evie from She Was Only Evie. They're all going to be in the description below, so check out their channels and subscribe if you haven't. Also, at the end of this video, I'm going to talk about betrayal on a more personal level, so I hope you stick around for that. There are 9 tags today in this Betrayal book tag, and it's a kind of fun one, so I wanted to do it right away. This tag is literally like 3 days old, and we're going for it right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the tag, then I'm going to share with you what my answer to the prompts are. There's 9 of them. Let's get into it. This first tag is called Dusted. What book did you relish reading that other people blasted through and dusted you buddy reading? Okay, for this one, this was a pretty quick one. I don't do a ton of buddy reads, and when I do, I'm usually the first to finish, so maybe I'm the betrayer. Anyway, I'm going to say for this one, the book that I got dusted in reading, Quiluminati Style, Ordinary Grace, William Kent Kruger. We read this a couple of months ago for the Quiluminati, which is Mike, John, and Philip, and myself. And those guys all beat me through the book. Maybe Philip finished last, I'm not sure. But I know that John and Mike absolutely finished before me. The question is, did they start before me? Did they cheat? Did they come in earlier and start the book at the end of the prior month? We may never know the answers to these questions. Do I feel betrayed? Not necessarily, but it did answer the prompt. Let's move on to the next one. Prompt number 2 is book stabbing. What is the book that has been languishing on your TBR for so long because you keep prioritizing other buddy reads before it? Now, like I said, I don't do a ton of buddy reads, but if I had to pick a book that's been languishing on my TBR the longest, guess what? It's this one, John Gwynn's The Shadow of the Gods. Here's the good news. You guys, the BellTube community, in our community tab, voted this in for my next book to read. So, Shadow of the Gods, you shall languish no more. You are next up on the TBR. Yeah, so what was this? This was called book stabbing for the prompt. I'm quite certain, just based on the cover of the book, there's some stabbings going on inside of it as well. That's my answer for prompt 2. Let's move to the next one. Okay, prompt number 3, review overlord. Name a time you did not want to review or talk about a book because either A, someone else reviewed it so well first, or B, there are already so many reviews and discussions of the book. All right, for this one, it's pretty simple. I'm going to go with A Song of Ice and Fire, Game of Thrones. You know the series. Since I started this channel back in November of 2023, you know, I read these books in publication when they came out, so I'd already read all of this before starting the channel, and I didn't really want to go back and revisit it in a review fashion, because when I look at somebody like Jimmy Nuts, who is just an expert on this material, so much that he already has, you know, a second channel or a podcast devoted, I believe it's called Bend the Knee, just to this series, I can't beat that. And then Bookborn goes ahead and gets started with The Song of Ice and Fire and gives it the Bookborn treatment. And what do I mean by that? Man, she deep dives into this stuff. It is so admirable. I'm very jealous of her detailed and organizational abilities to be able to do that. But yeah, I mean, why do I want to make a Song of Ice and Fire video when Bookborn's got it, you know, on lockdown, and any things that I'm not sure about, I know Jimmy already knows. And for the most part, Mike probably does too, as does Scott the Bald BookTuber. So that's the series I'm going to answer for that question. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, this next prompt is prompt number 4, and it is called Sold Out. Name a booktuber who hyped up a book so much that it is no longer available in certain formats. All right, we're going to go back to, I think, maybe January. I think around January, when Daniel Green started hyping up The Sun Eater, and books like this one, Demon in White, went out of print. Now, this is a combination of paper shortages, but also Daniel Green's got over 500,000 followers, and I don't know how many books were published, but certainly not 500,000 of them at the time, and they just went right off the shelves. So Daniel Green probably was something to do with causing the shortage of Sun Eater, but now everything is back in stock, thankfully, and there's all kinds of special editions. I know that Christopher Rocchio did a Kickstarter for some special edition books. I know that The Broken Binding did a treatment, and I know Petrick did the art direction for it. So there's a lot to look forward to in the special editions of Sun Eater. But yeah, at the time, and to answer this question, what book went out of stock because of hype? I'm going to say Sun Eater books, due to Daniel Green featuring it on his channel. Let's move on to the next one. This next prompt is prompt number 5, and it is called Damaged Goods. Name a book you lent out and never got back, or you did get it back and it came back damaged. Okay, for this one, I'm going to need a visual aid because I'm not going to demonstrate damaging this myself. I don't have a book that I lent out that I never got back. I know that's kind of strange, but I have lent out some things that have been damaged before. Usually comic books. Probably back in the 1980s, my next door neighbor's dad, who I call Uncle Lowell, used to come over to our house and sit outside and read my comic books. No problem. I was happy that an adult was interested in what I was in as well. So I just have this random Batman here to show you a comic book. Now I'm going to show you what Uncle Lowell did with them. You normally read a comic book, right? Like this. Okay, you're reading your comic. Uncle Lowell did not do that. Uncle Lowell opened the comic book and did that. Now, if you read comic books and somebody does this, you are jumping out of your chair. And I was only like, 14 or 15 years old, maybe at the time, maybe even younger, if it was early 80s. But he would just read them like this and just bend the crap out of them and then just leave them in a stack outside for me to go pick up. So that is my answer to that prompt. I guarantee you Uncle Lowell has never been an answer on BookTube ever before. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, this next prompt is called Stealing the Spotlight. Name someone who has gotten all the praise or attention for hyping a book you hyped first. Okay, so this is an easy one. If you've been watching much of the channel, you know since its inception, I have been delivering the message of litrpg all along. In fact, I've been reading litrpg for over 10 years. I've got hundreds of books under my belt. A lot of the BeltTube community is even more read in litrpg than I am. So I was fairly surprised last week when I noticed that Daniel Green, yep, he's back in this video again. Hey Daniel, I know you don't know that I exist, but in case you happen to see the video, now you know I exist. Anywho's, Daniel put out a video called What Exactly is litrpg? I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, I've been talking about this since the beginning, but I've got a few thousand subscribers. He's got over 500,000 when I'm not so certain it was a favorite genre of his. And I don't even know that it is a favorite genre of his. I think he was just making a video. So To answer that question, I'm going to say Daniel Green's covering of litrpg. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, prompt 7 is called Outlier. Name a book that the masses overhyped or underhyped according to your taste. Okay, for this one, we're staying in the world of litrpg, and my answer is going to be The Wandering Inn by Pirate Abba. I kind of call it The Wandering Meh. Now, I know that just cost me, in real time, at least a dozen subscribers. Please don't leave me. We don't have to love each other's books all the time. Even 99% of the time is good enough. Anyway, do whatever you like. But for me, The Wandering Inn has been entirely overhyped, particularly for those of us who have read a lot of litrpg. It's just okay. I don't know. I didn't read past book 1 because book 1 has a barrier of entry on audio of 43 hours. Way too big of an ask for me. I will read probably 20 other litrpg series before I head back to book 2 of The Wandering Inn. That's going to be my answer for that question. Let's move on to the next one. Prompt number 8. Slump Starter. Name a book that diminished your desire to read. You guys, this one is the easiest answer of the day. The book that diminished my desire to read, maybe ever again, was The Magicians by Lev Grossman. I maintain that this is the worst fantasy book that I have ever read for sure. There are a lot of fantasy books that I've read, tons and tons of them, maybe 1,000, maybe more, I don't know. But clearly, the worst one. It doesn't even deserve any time on this video, so I'm going to just say it, move on. The Magicians by Lev Grossman. Terrible, awful, threw up in my mouth just now. Next question. And prompt number 9, I told you so. A book you told people was bad, but they read it anyway and they didn't like it. All right, this one was a little bit tricky because I had to go back in Goodreads and find all the books that I had either rated 1 star or 2 star. And I found one that I think applies here, and that is Mockingjay, which is book 3 in the Hunger Games trilogy. All right, so I didn't like how the author finished this book at all. I tried to tell people, hey, if you like the Hunger Games, just quit and leave the story unfinished and untold after book 2, because book 3 is a hot mess. And yeah, I completely still stand by that. Mockingjay is a hot mess. That's a book I told people it's not going to be that good. They read it anyway. Why? Because it's a book 3 of a trilogy. Most people don't want to not know what happens at the end. So, yep, Mockingjay, you are the winner of this particular prompt. Let's move on. And we're going to move on into the one for the road today. And like I told you at the beginning of the video, I want to talk about a very personal betrayal that almost all of us universally do. It's when we betray ourselves. And a lot of the times we call it self-sabotage, right? And we do it. We all know we do it, some more than others, but it's pretty prevalent where we know we have a particular goal or something we have in mind that we want to accomplish or be part of our lives in some regard, or maybe kick out of our lives in some regard, and we find a way to stumble over ourselves to ensure that it doesn't happen. Now, some of the time it's very conscious that we're sabotaging ourselves, right? If we have certain physical fitness goals, just for example, and we choose not to go to the gym, and we choose to eat foods we know are clearly not part of our nutrition plan, then we are actively self-sabotaging ourselves. But I think what's even a little bit more insidious is that subconscious self-sabotage. And I think that gets down to self-worth sometimes. Sometimes in our mind, we think, I don't deserve it. Now, it's not a conscious thing that we come up with, right? It's just somewhere in the back of our mind. Because we're so used to not having something, we think maybe we don't deserve it. And I challenge all of us today, myself included, to ask ourselves a serious question. Why don't I think I deserve this? And call BS on ourselves, because as I've said before in some of these other One for the Roads, we have very poor BS meters in our minds. When we say it out loud, we realize how stupid it sounds and we move on. But when we don't verbalize it and we're just thinking it all the time, that's when the insidiousness of self-sabotage can absolutely just wreck all of your best laid plans. That's my one for the road today, and it's just to pay attention a little bit more to what you're telling yourself on the inside and maybe verbalize it to yourself so you can recognize how silly it is, move on, and accomplish what you want to accomplish. I'm super curious in the comments below. If any of these tag prompts are of interest to you and something came like boom immediately to mind, throw them down in the comments, because this was a bit of a different type of tag than I normally would do. And I'm very curious to see what the community here comes up with for some of these prompts. Now, part of a book tag is that you must tag some other people to also do this prompt. Now, who am I going to tag? All right, I am going to tag Theo from Rekindled Reader. I am going to tag Mike from Mike's Book Reviews. Yep, Mike, I'm giving you more content. Yay. I hope you do this, by the way. And let's see, let's do a third tag. Who should we tag? Who do we know that is maybe in North Carolina, works with his son, does BookTube, does like 3 videos a week? I don't even know how he does it. Let's tag Talking Story. I believe his name is John Minton. Let's tag John Minton in this book tag. You guys, this has been a lot of fun. All right, I'm going on way too long. Everybody, stay positive, and here's your fortune.